Hello, everyone, and welcome to an extra special episode of Cue It Up with the Q Brothers. I'm John Quattrucci, and Ralph is not here today. I'm doing this one solo, and the reason is because I am going to review Spider-Man No Way Home, and Ralph, as you all know, has no interest in superhero movies. So I'm going to do this one on my own, and I'm really excited to do this. I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, as you can tell by my life-size Tobey Maguire Spider-Man. I'm a very avid comic book collector, and in the Marvel Universe, Spider-Man is by far my favorite character. Superman is overall. Let me make that clear. But I've been dying to talk about this movie. I saw it 2 nights ago. I went to the theater. I saw a 9:30 show on IMAX. It was a packed movie theater, which was exciting in itself because the last few times I've gone, there's been about 20 people in the audience. And it was a very, very appreciative audience. So before I begin my review, I want to make something very clear. I wrote a review on Facebook that was free of spoilers. This is going to have spoilers. So if you have not seen the movie, you do not want to watch this because I'm going to talk about a lot of spoilers. Okay. So you have been warned. So let's talk about Spider-Man No Way Home. It was directed by John Watts, who directed the other 2 Tom Holland Spider-Man. And the gist of the story is that it picks up right after Spider-Man Far From Home, where Mysterio has told the world that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. It picks up right after that. And the first 25 to 30 minutes or so deals with the ramifications of that. And it really impacts his friends. In fact, one of my few complaints about the movie, and by the way, let me just tell you right up front, I love this movie. I when I left the movie theater, I was like, wow, what did I just watch? I put this in the my top 5 superhero movies of all time, Superman 1978 being number 1. But I put this in the top 5. That's how good it was. I have a few little complaints, nothing really major, but the first 30 minutes or so sets up the whole story. But it was really about how I got into college, because that is what predicates everything that Peter Parker does in the show. So his friends struggle to get an MIT because of their relationship with Spider-Man. Everybody knows about it. His life is miserable now. He's got to leave his apartment. The paparazzi are all over the place. There's choppers everywhere. So he comes up with the decision to go see Doctor Strange, played by Benedict Cumberbatch, to come up with a way that maybe people can forget that he is Spider-Man. Peter Parker and Spider-Man are one and the same. So Doctor Strange starts doing a spell. Peter Parker starts changing the spell because he realizes instead of everyone forgetting he's Spider-Man, could he just have like Aunt May? Could he have his MJ, his friend Ned? And as a result of his interfering, it messes up the spell. And unbeknownst to them at the time, they've opened up doors to the multiverse. And it ends up that villains who know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man from other universes come into his universe. Okay, that's the multiverse. That's setting up a lot of things that is pretty interesting. Okay, so that's the premise of the story. So as a result, we get villains from the original Spider-Man, 2002 Spider-Man, and the Amazing Spider-Man with Andrew Garfield, the first one being with Tobey Maguire. So and right away, once that happens, that's when the movie just rockets off into the stratosphere. So the first villain is Alfred Molina as Dr. Octopus, and they use CGI to de-age him. But it looks good. It doesn't look plastic. The arms are fantastic because in the original, they had practical arms. This one, they're CGI. So they do a lot more. And he was great. He picked up right where he left off. And then in the ensuing battle, you see one of the pumpkin bombs and you see the Green Goblin. And again, played by Willem Dafoe, who is, I think, one of the best villains in the Marvel Universe. And in this movie, he absolutely shines. They also have Jamie Foxx as Electro. And they fixed him because if you remember in The Amazing Spider-Man, he was blue and electric. In this one, he's Jamie Foxx. And they even shout out to the comic book Electro. Whenever he powers up, he gets the lightning bolts across the face, which is the original Electro costume. You also have the Lizard. And you have the Sandman, or they're not their human forms, but they're other forms. So the voices of Thomas Hayden Church and Rise. I don't know his last name. I feel bad about that, but I don't know it. They do the voice, but you never see them for real. There are a couple scenes where they show them real, but I think they were clips taken from the original movies. I think I remember reading that. So now you've got these 5 villains, and what ends up happening is he's got to get him back to their dimensions because they think he's their Spider-Man, but he's not. So it's very confusing. But then they manage to cage them all up. And so the gist of it is if the reason why they're there is because they all died in a battle with Spider-Man. So if they send them back to their universes, they're sending them back to die. So Peter Parker, being a kid and a good kid, after talking to his Aunt May, realizes, you know what? Maybe we can change these guys. And that's the gist of that. Now, I won't give away more of the plot, but at one point, Ned gets some kind of magical power from Doctor Strange, which is pretty unexplained. Again, a small little criticism. And they're looking for Peter. MJ and Ned are looking for Peter. And he opens up a portal and you see Spider-Man down an alley way, way in the distance. And he comes closer and closer. Then he comes through the portal and you realize it's Andrew Garfield's version of Spider-Man. And the crowd went crazy when he pulled off his cowl and it was Andrew Garfield. And well, I'll get to him in a minute. So now they open up another portal and who comes walking through but Tobey Maguire, the original Spider-Man. And again, the crowd went absolutely crazy. Now, there were leaks that they were going to be in it, but Marvel and Sony were being very coy if it was real or not. It's real. And what I loved about it was they weren't just throwaway cameos. Okay. They didn't just show up for 5 minutes, make a speech, and then go back to their universe. They were the supporting players for the second half of the movie and an integral part of the story. And what was great was when the 3 of them finally got together with Tom Holland, their banter, their chemistry was real. And they looked like they were having a ball. And I will tell you, for me, the original Spider-Man, is my canon of Spider-Man. I thought Tobey Maguire did a great job. In fact, I thought Spider-Man 2 was the better of the 3 films that they made with him. And I wasn't a huge fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies 1 and 2 with Andrew Garfield. But I got to tell you, Andrew Garfield steals the scenes that he is in with Tom Holland and Tobey Maguire. He was great. He was funny. He was very emotional because in Spider-Man 2, Gwen Stacy died actually at his hand, and he couldn't save her. So that plays a role in this. Tobey Maguire, his Peter Parker not being able to save Uncle Ben plays a role in it. Now, Tom Holland, who I've really liked in the Spider-Man movies and the Avengers movies he's done. Because he's always been, first of all, he was age appropriate, right? He was a kid playing kid, but he was light. Because Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire, they do a lot of crying in their Spider-Man movies. There's no doubt about that. Tom Holland didn't do that. So as a result, I didn't know if he had the acting chops of Garfield and Tobey Maguire. Well, in this movie, he's got the acting chops because he goes through a roller coaster ride of emotions. Funny stuff, very funny stuff, especially between the 3 of them. Their Peter Parkers are different. Their Spider-Man are very different. Their background stories are very different. So all that happens is really well done. But he is his acting in this is unbelievable, and he carries the film. He really does carry the films. And there are some really, really heartbreaking, emotional moments. And the big spoiler, and I can't believe they were able to hide this, is Uncle Ben doesn't die. Aunt May dies, Marissa Tomei, and she was very good in the role that she played in this, probably the best that she's done in the 3 movies. But when she died, that was I was not expecting that. In fact, she did the famous line for the first time in a Tom Holland film, "With great power comes great responsibility," which is usually spoken by Uncle Ben. again, showing a little different Spider-Man in this universe. But it was a heartbreaking scene, and Tom Holland, you could hear a pin drop in the movie theater. It was incredible, and he played it real. It was raw, and his motivation for the rest of the movie comes from the fact. Oh, by the way, the Green Goblin is the one that killed her, William Dafoe. And he, like I said, I think he's the best villain, and he went right back into that 2002 mode, except they went more with he smashed the helmet and got a more comic accurate costume. He had a hoodie on that was purple. His clothes got torn up just like in the comics. So it was pretty raw. But he did a great job. And I read that this is his last Spider-Man contractually. But with all the money this movie's making, I have to believe they're going to bring him back. I would be ashamed if they don't, because he's really growing into the role, and he's going to be a more mature Spider-Man. And there's a big sacrifice at the end too, which I'll get to in a minute. Benedict Cumberbatch is great as Doctor Strange, and the scenes that they have together are hilarious. You know, they said that like Doctor Strange will replace Iron Man as Spider-Man's mentor, but it's more like an older brother. Not like a father figure, which Tony Stark was, but they're hilarious. Harsh when he needs to be, but he was very funny, and their scenes together were really good. And it's also setting up Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is coming out next year, again to deal with the multiverse. So their scenes are great, and he's good in anything he does. Yeah, even and I want to say her name right, Zendaya. She plays MJ. Never been a huge fan of her portrayal of MJ because, quirky, kind of dark, glasses half empty type thing. So I wasn't really expecting much, but I tell you, in this movie, she was great. You finally believe that these two people could really care about each other, and they gave her a little more optimism. And in fact, one of the best scenes in the movie is a repeat of Amazing Spider-Man 2, where she gets thrown off the Statue of Liberty, and just like Gwen Stacy did in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, and Tom Holland, his Spider-Man, goes to save her, and just as they're he's about to grab her, Green Goblin knocks him out. So you think, oh, here we go again, and Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man saves her by not making the same mistake he made with Gwen Stacy, and he rolls. She lands on him. He picks her up in her arms and with tears in his eyes. Are you okay? And he got closure to what happened to him. It was great. It was really, really well done. And then, of course, there's the betrayal of the Green Goblin, who they tried to cure. And Tom Holland's character, his Spider-Man, wants to kill him because he killed May. And there's a scene at the end where he is just pummeling him. And the whole time, William Dafoe is just laughing. And finally, Holland goes to takes the glider and goes to stab him with the glider. And Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man prevents him from doing that. And without saying a word, just through eye contact, lets him know this isn't the right thing to do. And he ends up not doing that. Well, as a result, he ends up getting stabbed by the Green Goblin. And that whole thing was interesting, too, the way they did that. So anyway, so they end up correcting all the villains' problems. Jamie Foxx turns back to normal, loses electricity. Alfred Molina gets a chip back. He's normal. Sandman back to normal. Lizard back to normal. Everyone's back to normal. And then they send them back to their own dimension. The problem is they've opened up a rift in the multiverse. And there's one scene where Doctor Strange is on top of the Statue of Liberty, and the sky starts opening up with purple. The multiverse is opening up. And if you watch closely, there are actually Spider-Man villains. You can see their outlines. I think one was a Scorpion. I think the Vulture was in there. Mephisto, I think, was there. So Tom Holland, Spider-Man, goes to Doctor Strange and says, what can we do to stop this? So they come up with the idea that he can set a spell that nobody will remember Peter Parker. And by nobody, including Doctor Strange, including MJ, his girlfriend, including his best friend. So that's the only way that they can close this fissure that's opening up. And Tom Holland makes that sacrifice. So the scenes where he says goodbye to the two Spider-Men, to MJ and Ned, is pretty powerful. And the movie closes with him going to where MJ works, and Ned and MJ are in there, and obviously they don't know him, but they're talking about MIT, how they're excited about going to school. And Tom Holland had a whole thing he was going to read to her to try to make her remember. And after seeing how well they were doing, he kind of walks out. So he made the ultimate sacrifice. And the way he played it was, a lot of it was just in his face. It was an amazing performance by Tom Holland. I know he's a good actor, but I think this was by far his best acting performance, at least in the Marvel universe. But this movie had everything. And I want to say this too, and it's doing unbelievable business. And part of the reason is because it was pure entertainment, and it was made for the fans. And Marvel, the last probably 2 years after Avengers Endgame, has really done, I think, a disservice to the fans, because I think most of their stuff is it's too woke. And I know people hate that phrase, but they are. They have political agendas. This movie blows them away. And frankly, it respects the fans, because the Easter eggs that are in it, the way with which they respect the other movies and their universes, and obviously they love the character of Spider-Man. It's obvious in the director, the writer, and the producer how much they care about and respect the characters. I know that sounds over the top, but I'm telling you, there's a big difference there, because I think a lot of the stuff there was one other cameo in it. Charlie Cox, who plays Daredevil in the Netflix show Daredevil, which is the best Marvel series on TV, including all the Disney Plus stuff and all the other Netflix series. And they've just announced that Charlie Cox's Daredevil is going to be part of the MCU. Hence, he was Peter Parker's lawyer, and he never dressed up as Daredevil. But there's one scene where a brick gets thrown through the window, and as a blind man, he catches it. And it was really cool. So shout out to Marvel and Sony for doing that. So if you are a fan, and as you can see, I am, you're going to love this movie. And I recommend seeing it in IMAX, because it was visually, it was fantastic. The action was great. The action scene on the highway is good. The action scene on the Statue of Liberty, Captain America's shield, was very cool too. But it's a good looking movie. The performances are great. I think you're really going to like it. So I can't recommend it highly enough. You want some pure escapism. You want to remember what the Marvel movies used to be like. Go see this movie. And if you're a fan of the other two Spider-Man movie, you're going to love this, because, like I said, Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire were not throwaways. They're an important part of the story, and their chemistry is great. Now, there are two after-credit scenes. One is about a quarter of the way through the credits with Tom Hardy as Venom, which is kind of funny. And it also implies that Venom is now going to be part of the MCU universe, because before he gets put back to his universe, there's a little black blotch on a bar that he was at, and it starts to crawl. But the big after credit scene, and you got to wait till the entire credit roll, which is a long time. A lot of people left before. I don't think they thought there was going to be one, because it took so long. But there's an after credit scene, which basically is a trailer for the Doctor Strange movie in the Multiverse of Madness, which connects directly to this. So it does set that up and what they're going to do. And the great thing about the multiverse is, like they did with Spider-Man, I think they can do some pretty amazing things with maybe some of the other movies. I also read an article, which, if true, I'm pretty happy about. I guess Andrew Garfield made such an impact in this film, and Sony was so happy with what he did. They're trying to figure out other ways to bring him back in. I don't know if it's going to be his own movie, or if he's going to be part of, maybe the multiverse. I'd love to see it, because he was, I can't tell you, he was so good. He was really funny in this, and it was a great characterization. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. So, okay. So here's my one other criticism. And again, and very, very small, but as a Spider-Man comic book fan, right? Spider-Man almost never took his mask off in front of people. I mean, almost never. My big complaint about all the Spider-Man movies, all of them, is that he's always removing his mask. Now, I know why, John. You got these big name actors playing Spider-Man. You got to show their faces. I totally get that, but it's so antithetical to the comic book. I think I would have liked to see, even in this movie. And again, you have Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire. You want to show their faces, obviously, but they probably should have worn them a little bit more. That's a very, very small complaint. Okay, very, very small, because I was dying to talk about this movie. And when I wrote my review for Facebook, I wanted to put all the spoilers in there because I was so excited to talk about it, but I don't want to ruin it for people. So I'm telling you, go see this movie. I think you're really, really going to enjoy it. If you want to be entertained and not preached to, and if you are a fan, know that your views about the character are going to be respected, this is the movie for you. And I really, really hope that Marvel, based on how much money this movie is making, that Marvel learns from this and does more movies like this. And I certainly hope Tom Holland continues as Spider-Man, because I think he's great, and I'd like to see him in more of these. So that's my review on Spider-Man, No Way Home, or No Way Home. Yeah. Far From Home, No From Home. So let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, I beg you guys, please subscribe, hit the notification button, and slam that like button, because we're making a difference the last few ones we've done, and we really appreciate you guys coming watching our show. And hopefully I can do more reviews like this, because I really enjoy this too. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week with my brother Ralph this time. We'll talk soon. Thanks again. I've never seen that. I've never seen Let It Be.